unless he's sitting down.
He's here. I think he's DDOT representation is trying to get over.
Are there any other DDOT representatives?
I'm with DDOT as well.
Okay, if you could come up and state your name and.
Sure, but this is Will's presentation. I do not have all the information. There it is. He'll be giving the presentation.
Thank you. We're trying to get the safety set up.
I'm not sure the podium mic is working.
Oh, really?
Doesn't sound like it earlier.
We can use the mic.
Thank you. Well, we worked through the technical difficulties. We can put up some visuals in a minute, but my name is Will Hansfield. I'm a planner with DDOT. I'm joined by Karen McAllister from our team. But we wanted to come in and just talk to you guys about the proposed bike lanes on Woodley Place. Show of hands, who has seen some version of the plans or has heard about these bike lanes? So, boy, that's pretty good coverage. So, if we don't get to the visuals during the presentation, we can talk through some of them. But roughly, they're about 1,000 feet long. We'll run from Calvert to Cathedral, and it's a configuration called a contra-flow bike lane. I brought we use the NACA, National Association of City Transportation Officials manual, and it's one of the very typical types of bike lanes that you can put in. So there's like literally a textbook version of it is like this, and this is a lot like the one that we're discussing today. So this is the guidance that we follow. Trying to look up some other Federal Highways manual guidance on this one, but we run roughly from Calvert with a lane going in the a share lane running downhill. On that same block running from Calvert, there's going to be a lane going sort of the opposite direction of current car traffic, marked behind a double yellow line. If you've been to G or I Street in the circuit here, G and I Northeast, we have a very similar facility. There's a couple nearby. Champlain Street might be the most relevant. We have about 3 miles of this type of facility installed in the district today. I think general characteristics, we've been looking at some of the safety characteristics, and it doesn't appear that there's anything related to that type of facility that's jumping out. We also tend to put them next to arterial streets that are very high volume. So in the case of G and I Street Northeast, it's next to Connecticut, or next to H Street. Here we'd be next to Connecticut Avenue. Another typical type of street that we do, we'll do like paired bike lane couplets if we have a grid network to use. In your case, in this section of Woodley Park, there's a lot of topography challenges, and there aren't really paired grid streets, so you can't find a couplet that we have all over town. So 14th and 15th Northeast and Southeast, or 4th and 6th Northeast and Southeast. So what the contra-flow lane gives you the ability to do is have both directions of bike travel, bypass the high volume arterial. Those are typically pretty high stress roads to ride on or bicycle on. And it gives people an alternative that's safe and safe for many more users, right? So we actually had this slide, but we'll see if we get it up or not. We have a taxonomy where it's, you know, the sort of road warrior bicyclist, those people can handle riding on Connecticut. Then there's the interested, you know, but concerned cyclists. And then they probably aren't really your target market for a street like Connecticut. And then there's like 55% of people that would never ride on something like Connecticut, you know, not in their wildest dreams. So putting a facility in like Woodley Place, contra-flow bike lanes, it's a whole lot more kids are able to ride in this facility experience with their children. So that's the type of facility that we're going to put in there. I'm going to pass it to Karen to talk a little bit about some of the things that she's turned up in the research, and we might actually be able to get the visuals out.
Sure. I don't have a whole lot to add to what Will was talking about, but I think one of the things is also the bicycle lanes will they're going to add traffic calming, if you will, having a designated lane. It narrows the roadway for vehicles, and so there's research and evidence. Federal Highways has issued some research to show that bike lanes are an effective traffic calming, facility, if you will. So that's another benefit to this, in addition to how Will was saying, it gives bicyclists of all abilities another way to travel and avoid a multi-lane, high-stress corridor like Connecticut Avenue. We have some really good visuals to kind of go with what we're saying.
Could you run through those rapidly, please?
Yes, we will run very rapidly.
Can people see if I'm sitting here? Am I
No,
very
you're
far away?
not.
Could dim the lights just a little bit right above the screen here?
Well, that turn
Better.
Okay, so this is sort of the 30,000 foot planning level. This is Move BC. Anyone familiar with Move BC? Okay, so we don't need to cover that. This is that user design profile. So there's Connecticut Avenue, very highly confident kind of road warrior style. And the interested but concerned is more like where Woodley Place would fit into the network. This is just a couple of things that we saw when we did a survey of your street. We just looked at some of the signage that's out there today. So a lot of what this suggests is that speeding has been a long time problem here. So there's a speed limit sign, like roughly every other sign pole. There's slow for children signs, there's speed humps. So some of those characteristics of the contra-flow bike lane that will actually comp traffic might be appealing. We have modified the design a little bit since we first discussed it, and I think we didn't get this sign change in there, but the Sunday parking will go from 8 to 1:30. This is the next block. We're going to add some high-vis crossings at Woodley and Woodley. We're going to add some a bike crossing sort of marking condition over there on the right-hand side next to on Calvert. So that was one of the comments that came up. Stop signs for the in the correct position for the cyclists going the contra-flow direction. And then this project uniquely adds about 25 feet of parking space. So loading was probably the biggest concern that people shared over and over. We're going to make that space a commercial loading zone. And if that's not enough, we can always add more spaces on the block that are daytime commercial loading to satisfy the demand that's present. This is essentially what it would look like. So these are just really easy, quick ways to visualize it. There's Champlain at the top, there's I Street at the bottom, 11th Street Northwest, G Street Northeast, New Hampshire down in the bottom left. So let's open it up for questions.
Could you please clarify that Woodley Place is one way going in one block and one way going in the other? So in effect, you will have bicycles meeting at that intersection. You're implying in your presentation that in all the examples that you cite are of lanes that are consistently in one direction going counter to the traffic.
Yeah, so the point is that this is two one-ways that meet, and so the way we've addressed this with the design is that in one direction the Sharrow meets up with the contra-flow lane in the other direction, and vice versa. The shared lane meets up with the contra-flow, so you have a pretty even connection for the full distance of Woodley Place.
Excuse me, for those of us who
A
are
shared-
not
yeah,
as knowledgeable, please
shared-
explain your terms.
Sure.
Speak more slowly.
We're going to have about 10 minutes for comments and questions. You have to be recognized before you can speak, so please raise your hand. And we're going to try to make sure that we provide an even number. If it'd be all right with you, Will, I'm going to call on people to make sure that we know there are different points of view here. We've heard from a great many people. And because you've all turned out, we want to give you the opportunity. So was that lady's question answered? Okay. Now, do we have someone who wants to speak perhaps in favor of what DDOT is proposing? The gentleman back there with the aggressive hand held up? And I just ask you to keep your comments very brief, no more than a minute, as I see you taking out your paper.
My name is Aaron Langham. My name is Aaron Langham. Not only am I a resident of 3C04, but I'm also a cyclist in this very area. I'm here to join the chorus of support for better and more bike lanes in Ward 3, specifically beginning with DDOT's proposed contra-flow lane of Woodley Place Northwest. The importance of bike lanes is manifested in a great number of issues facing DC. They're critical to having an attractive neighborhood not dominated by car traffic. They present greater equity for the most vulnerable users of our road. They open up people's abilities to travel in a healthier and more sustainable manner, and most importantly, they are an essential measure in our attempt to achieve Vision Zero, a goal on which we are far behind meeting. This project should be a slam dunk. It involves the removal of exactly 0 parking spaces, and essentially requires paint on the ground for a few street blocks. That such a low-hanging fruit like this is being opposed so heavily speaks to the dominance of exclusion and car culture that DC absolutely must overcome if it is to become the city we all deserve. I therefore strongly support the resolution to endorse DDOT's proposal for this much-needed bike infrastructure. I encourage the other commissioners of the ANC 3C to do so as well, and to demonstrate that they value the safety and needs of cyclists despite the short-sighted opposition of the group that thrives on exclusion and resistance to change. Thank you. And build bike lanes on Connecticut Avenue.
That's a different viewpoint that they want to express. This lady?
And again, I ask you to keep it brief. Okay, I'm happy to. I've lived in the city for 50 years. I've lived on 2700 block of Woodley Place for 30, just about 30. I'm here to speak for pedestrians and for safety. We heard discussions about seniors. I am a senior. And I find the whole idea, and I run into this with the speeding bicyclist down a very quiet road. Ever since they stopped the construction on Rock Creek Parkway, we have not had the traffic on Woodley Place. It's gone back to the way it used to be before. With the change and having more bicycles there, as a pedestrian, I find this very frightening. I am not totally comfortable on my feet. I have a right to live. In fact, I like DC. I've lived here 50 years. I'm proud, and might I add, every ward I have lived in. And therefore, I feel like a real Washingtonian. And I'm also concerned that those of us who are getting older, with these kinds of changes in residential neighborhoods, will be very dangerous for pedestrians. And I am a pedestrian. Thank you.
Thank you. Different point of view. All right, you, sir.
Hi, great, thank you so much. My name is Josh Rising. I cycle down Connecticut Avenue just about every day. I want to thank all the commissioners here. I know people have put a lot of time and energy into thinking through this issue, and I want to thank all of you. I helped start the Ward 3 Bicycle Advocates a couple years ago to help advocate for better bicycle infrastructure in Ward 3. Ward 3 does lag behind other parts of the city in terms of the amount of protected infrastructure we have. And the goal is really a complete network where anyone who is interested in cycling is able to move through different parts of the ward and city comfortably. These contra-flow lanes take a significant step in that direction, and the Ward 3 Bicycle Advocates support this. From my own personal perspective, I would use this as I come home. I'm biking west on Calvert. I would like to avoid that crowded stretch of Connecticut with lots of cars stopping. I would turn right on Woodley Place and then take Cathedral and continue north on Connecticut. So it would benefit me and others who cycle on Connecticut Avenue. I certainly have heard from people with families and children who are not interested in biking in Connecticut at all, and this would be very helpful as they try to get downtown. I know there have been some safety concerns expressed. Certainly the bicyclists who are biking through the community and also DDOT feel comfortable with this proposal, and that this would be the safest way to get to Adams Morgan from this part of the city. Also, I'd like to say that I think just about everybody in the room says that they would support bicyclists and that they support more bike lanes in the city, but just not right here. I would say whenever bike lanes get proposed, there is opposition that goes to them. However, this is a chance to actually support a bike lane that will not reduce the parking at all and will be a significant step forward for safety. So I'd urge us all who support bikers and bike lanes to take this opportunity to support the bike lane. Thank you.
Now is just in the interest of time that, calling you Roger, that if you line up here, if we have two lines, or we could just pass the microphone back and forth, that might be helpful. But I'm gonna warn everyone that we probably aren't gonna get through more than, if we get through 5 on each side, it'll be a miracle. So if you're not in favor of the bike lane, please, behind the lady, I'm gonna call on you, Roger, that lady with the red scarf. If you are in favor of the bike lane, behind man in the black.
Thank you very much. My name is Roger White, and I am a resident of Woodley Place. I want to bring a focus on the specific action that is under consideration, and that is whether or not to accept the DDOT proposal to put contra-flow lanes on Woodley Place. What DDOT has said in its proposal is that it is organizing current travel patterns. That is its justification. It doesn't offer any studies, any counts. It just claims that there's current traffic, bike traffic on Woodley Place that it needs to organize. It doesn't know origins or destinations. And this is information that they've not been able to offer during a walkthrough of the 2 blocks. It's information they were not able to offer during a residents meeting held last week. This is not about filling a gap. Nowhere in the proposal is there any mention of connecting with any other part of the biking infrastructure for DC. In fact, it connects from Calvert Street on the south up to Cathedral Avenue, which is a dicey connection over to Connecticut Avenue, which is not a signed or laned area yet, although we are all very hopeful that that will happen. Because it is not connected to an effort to create biking or add to biking infrastructure, it doesn't consider alternatives to Woodley Place, such as the Devonshire alternative. No mention, even surprise when that comes up. It is not that kind, it's just saying there's some bike traffic on Woodley Place and we're going to organize it. Okay. Very important that this is a contra-flow, and DDOT claims contra-flow lanes are effective and safe without any qualifications, even though Federal Highway Administration says when you have contra-flow on a one-way street, that's usually not recommended, and they go through a whole lot of reasons why and where it might be justified. When DDOT offers examples of contra-flow, they are on much wider streets. They are on streets that have high-use destinations that come directly, that the contra-flow lanes deliver bikers to very directly on Champlain and G&I streets, the ones that get mentioned. Approval would be tantamount to saying DDOT can put a bike lane anywhere it sees bikes.
Sure, great, let's do it.
Thank you. My name is Steve Sealy. Will, can you go back to the different types of cyclists that there are? Because not everybody who's on the line to the left is going to be able to speak. And so I wanted to take a moment just to ask people who are on that line, how many of you fit within the category of the 4 to 7, the highly confident, the people who ride on Connecticut Avenue currently? Are there many of us here? And how many of you fit in the 5 to 9%? You would ride on a bike lane here. And how many of you fit in the rest, that you're not confident riding in a place that it currently exists on Connecticut Avenue? And I think that's a good depiction of really the reason why we need this bike lane. Excuse me, ma'am. I'd also like to say that Mr. White is absolutely incorrect about the linkage issue. My son is 10 years old. He and I have ridden bicycles by ourselves. He's ridden since he's 6. We ride to Nats Park. We ride downtown to the hockey games. the one link that we're missing to get downtown from where we live up on Ingomar Street, 41st Street, is Woodley Place. We can ride safely on bike lanes that are designated by the city. And to suggest that this isn't a missing link for people who want to ride safely is a misnomer. And the final thing that I'd like to say is, and I didn't bring my tape measure, and I'm sad that I didn't, but this desk in front is actually less wide than the current street that is now a 2-lane street on Woodley Place. And the objections that excuse me, I'm speaking. The objections that I've heard from Mr. White and the people on Woodley Place essentially are getting to the issue that they want to continue to illegally park in that double wide lane. That's the reason why they don't want a bike lane there, so that they can park illegally as they have for decades and to continue to do so. Thanks.
Wait a minute, do we have 3 people on both?
You haven't left your
Nobody's
very long
parking illegally on Woodley Place, parking on only one side of the street.
Hey. All right. Excuse me.
And
Excuse me.
what it means organizing travel.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Please, if you want to have a discussion, please go out in the hall and have it. We're in a library. We're having a meeting. Thank you.
We talk about organizing travel patterns. What does that even mean? There's bicycles going both ways on both blocks of Woodley Place all the time. You already have what you want, which is fine. Bikes go there safely both directions, and now what's to organize? The lanes aren't going to make anything safer. People go up and down both ways now. And I've seen bikers, I'm sitting up in my window, the 2600 block photograph, that's my driveway on the right-hand side. And there's a lot of cars going in and out of those driveways and in and out of the alleys. And there's a lot of trucks and deliveries and things that'll be parking on the right-hand side, the non-parking side. There always is. There will be, with or without bike lanes, which will just be an encumbrance. Cars will have to go around them. That'll encroach on the bike lanes. It just doesn't make any sense to have bike lanes when you already have everything you want to ride on Woodley Place right now, without putting those bike lanes that will be restrictive of deliveries and drop-offs and taxis and lifts and pickups and all those things. And traffic calming, that's nonsense too. There's speed bumps there all the time. There's a lot of potholes that have been there a long time, and I expect they will be a long time. And so there's not a lot of racing of cars or anything else on Woodley Place. And when there is traffic, like zoo lights or some event at the hotel, it's just a standstill. There's no calming needed. It needs to be moved along. So none of this justifies the presence of the bike lanes. And just to give a small number of riders something they already have now doesn't make any sense. Okay.
Thank you very much. Could you pass the microphone to this woman? And you're going to be the last.
Don't have a problem. Okay, sure. And this very, short and sweet. I'm a, native Washingtonian. I bought a house a couple blocks away here. And I gotta say, my main hesitation, honestly, to living in Ward 3 is just that it's infamous for not having bikes available. I used to live on 15th Street in Florida in a condo. It had the safest bike rate that I took it every single day to school, to work. I was in much better shape. I was in much better mental shape. I was helping the environment. I felt really, really good about it. I live here. I bought this house, and I feel really unsafe for myself to take the safest way. I'm using my car 1,000 times more. It's really, really inefficient and bad for the environment, bad for everything. My husband rides every single day. He's more brave. He's a little bit more towards the risk-loving side of this distribution. So he does. I worry for him. And we're really just talking about a couple blocks. We're not talking about displacing cars. Like, it just doesn't seem that this should be so contentious. And it just really feels like something that would help a lot of people. Our cities is only getting more congested. Do something positive to get people. Look at how many people are in line to make positive comments on this. Get to and from work more safely.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So you should all take your seats again. I'm sorry, we're constrained for time. best we could. We've heard from many of you, so please don't feel that, whatever your point of view is, that it hasn't been heard. I'm going to ask Commissioner Reba now to introduce this new resolution.
Thank you. I first want to say that I'm really pleased that so many residents from across the board turned out to this meeting this evening, because what we're discussing tonight is not only important at the moment, but it's important to our city and to DDOT as they move forward with Vision Zero, and the fact that they are still and continuing to
Cleveland
build.
Park patrons, the time is now 8:30, and the library will be closing in 30 minutes.
And they are still continuing to build biking infrastructure across this city, and that is key. And I hope that no matter what happens this evening, that we come together as a community, whether you live in Woodley Park, Cleveland Park, Forest Hills, Chevy Chase Circle, wherever you live, then we can come together to work with DDOT to push them on bicycle safety, particularly along the Connecticut Avenue corridor. And I'm pleased to hear the one gentleman speak to the Connecticut Avenue corridor, because you'll see that that's a major piece within my resolution. Before I begin the resolution, I just wanted to share a few thoughts. As a commissioner and as a district resident and as a cyclist myself, a third generation Washingtonian, I feel it's my duty and responsibility to exercise skepticism anytime anyone tries to place district residents in jeopardy when it comes to vehicular, cycling, and pedestrian safety. There are too many issues relating to traffic concerns along Woodley Place not to have an abundance of caution. And if you adopt a policy of safety first, then you have to say, are we sure? And the residents and cyclists that live along Woodley Place have said, no, we are not. And there are still, yes, there are a few, allow me, and I'm going to, I have a resolution. We do have a short period of time, as you just heard the announcement, so I would just respect everybody to be calm, listen, and then we can address it. But we can't have any more interruptions if we're trying to meet the timeline that we are constricted by the library. But there are still issues that still exist from 2013 that DDOT has not accepted, nor have they addressed. One of the things that I found as a member of the Advisory Neighborhood Commission, that it's not always that clear. You've got to do research, you've got to do your homework. You really, really have to listen to constituents, and that's why I'm so grateful that both sides are here tonight. And you end up wrestling with your conscience, because it's not always that simple that this is right and that is wrong. The tough votes are the ones that you agonize over, and then you do what you think is right in the best interest of all parties. One more thing, and I thank you for your indulgence, but before I read my resolution, I just wanted to hold up some items. This is a document from 2010 that DDOT was notified of all the traffic safety concerns within 3C01. This is a 2013 SMD report where it's identified that Commissioner Reba also identified the long-standing traffic issues within 3C01 that have never been addressed, and strongly encourages DDOT to conduct a full traffic calming study within 3C01. I share these things with you because if DDOT had done what had been requested time and time again, we may not even be having this conversation tonight. But because the issues were never addressed, haven't been addressed, we're moving forward with right back where we were in 2013. So with that, be patient. I'm going to read my just the resolve. Do we hear the whole thing? I don't know what the resolution is.
Six-page resolution.
And I will share with you that this evening, well, not this evening, but I need everybody to know that prior to this evening, that the entire commission was sent a copy of my resolution, which we always circulate amongst ourselves prior to the meeting. And along with that draft resolution, I included a petition that was circulated amongst the residents of 3C01 by a representative of Woodley Place, where out of 107 residents, 90 were contacted and 92% signed a petition opposing the bike lanes, and that was sent to DDOT, the Executive Office of the Mayor, and Councilmember Shea. So while there were a number of supporters in support of bike lanes, just for the record, I needed you to know that over approximately 123 people signed the petition against the bike lanes for the safety issues that have been addressed. So I think the question currently is, read the whole resolution or just the resolve? I think, would everybody appreciate hearing the whole resolution?
Just the resolve.
The resolve.
Well, there will be no discussion after the resolution except amongst the commission. So as long as we do our job, we should be fine. Madam Chair?
If you want to read the entire thing, you've got to read really fast, because we're going to run out of time, I'm afraid. Yeah, because I think we've done a discussion.
Okay, I'll just read the resolve, and I do have a few copies of the resolution that I made copies at Kinko's this afternoon, so if anybody would like a copy of the resolution, I think I may have enough. I'm happy to share it with you so we can continue this dialogue with DDOT. Thank you. So let me go ahead and read the resolve. Oh, do you mind if I just skim a few things? Just so no, thank you. I identified in the resolution about the 2013 issues that I addressed. I identified in the resolution that the U.S. Department of Transportation and many of the U.S. DDOT operation administrations play a role in improving safety for pedestrians and cyclists. I mentioned the U.S. Department of Transportation implementing the Mayor's Challenge Initiative for safer people, safer streets. I mentioned Vision Zero in the resolution. I mentioned the Washington Post article in the resolution. I mentioned letters that went to DDOT to the resolution, to DDOT. I mentioned a meeting on March 7th that Chairwoman McWood, myself, and a representative from Woodley Place residents, a meeting they had with DDOT on site. I mentioned some things that all of us identified that were safety issues while on that walkthrough. I identified that there were cyclists using Woodley Place, and I identified a meeting that was held on March 12th and some of the conversations that stemmed from that March 12th meeting.
That wasn't a public meeting.
I mentioned about 13 bullets that the residents from single member district 3C01, the bullets that they addressed and had concerns with, and these bullets were part of the petition that went to DDOT, the mayor's office, and Councilmember Shea. The resolution also mentioned that GoDCGo.com bike map showed 6 different ways to get to Calvert Street that currently exist, and many of them are currently an already bike path down to Calvert Street, whether you go from Woodley Road, Garfield, Reno Road, Parks North. And I also mentioned that DDOT just recently launched the Rock Creek Far West Livability Study that evaluates transportation network in the study area from a system perspective and looks for opportunities for a safer and more accessible multimodal network. And this initiative, the Rock Creek Far West Livability Study, will improve accommodations for people walking, biking. I mentioned that in the resolution. So I will now read the resolves. Therefore, be it resolved, while ANC 3C and specifically Woodley Park residents totally support increased biking infrastructure for the District of Columbia, which is consistent with Mayor Bowser's Vision Zero initiative, ANC 3C does not support the DC Department of Transportation Notice of Intent for the proposed installation of contra-flow bicycle lane along the 26 and 2700 block of Woodley Place until DDOT formulates an overall strategy for biking infrastructure that incorporates streets, avenues within Ward 3. Be it further resolved that ANC 3C strongly encourages DC Department of Transportation to conduct studies of the composition of traffic, the volume of traffic, origins, destinations, time of day, time of week considerations, accident reports, and intersection-specific traffic flows when considering biking infrastructure changes. Be it further resolved, ANC 3C fully supports DDOT launch of the Rock Creek Far West Livability Study to enhance the community quality of life through improvements to transportation safety and connections to all destinations for all modes, which includes cyclists. Be it further resolved, ANC 3C strongly encourages DC Department of Transportation to expedite the comprehensive study of Connecticut Avenue traffic patterns and potential changes and make the Mayor's Challenge initiative for safer people, safer streets an immediate priority for cyclists, pedestrians, and motorists. And be it further resolved that the Chair, Commissioner for 3C01, and/or their designee are authorized to represent ANC 3C on this matter. And before I turn over the mic, I just want to share that on May 21st, 2018, ANC 3C, at a scheduled notified public meeting, passed a DDOT resolution requesting that DDOT conduct a comprehensive study of Connecticut Avenue traffic patterns and potential changes, and thank you Commissioner Finley and Hirsch for leading that charge, including the elimination of reversible lanes during rush hour, as well as to include evaluation of parking in the non-rush hour right lane, bicycle lanes along the corridor, and rapid transit. And 3F also passed a similar resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All right. Discussions on the resolution. Any commissioners?
Thank you. I will try to go a little faster. I have an amendment, and while we try to work together whenever we can as commissioners, sometimes, frankly, we just have different views from one another. And so, with all due respect to Commissioner Reba, my amendment is an amendment in the nature of a substitute. We don't distribute amendments, so I will read it. I will read it very quickly. So here we go. I move to strike all text below the title of Commissioner Reba's resolution and replace it with the following. Whereas the District Department of Transportation has notified ANC 3C of its intention to install a contra-flow bike lane on the 2600 and 2700 blocks of Woodley Place Northwest. Whereas the district's Vision Zero initiative seeks to eliminate all transportation fatalities, including cyclist fatalities, by 2024 through a variety of means, including addition of and improvements to bike lanes. Whereas Mayor Muriel Bowser has committed in support of the Paris Climate Accord to make the district carbon neutral by 2050, then shifting some travel from automobiles to bikes will help the district achieve this goal. Whereas the DDOT proposal would result in a net increase of available on-street parking, would not alter the existing traffic pattern for cars, would not alter any pedestrian infrastructure, and would not require the construction or installation of any new physical infrastructure other than paint and appropriate signage. Whereas, in addition to on-street parking, most single-family homes on Woodley Place have driveways or garages in the rear of the home, accessed from public alleys, which may be used to load and unload cars. Whereas Woodley Place is an unusually wide one-way street with a single 17-foot wide vehicle travel lane. Whereas the Federal Highway Administration recommends lane widths of 12 feet for freeways with high-speed heavy truck traffic and suggests lanes as narrow as 9 feet in urban environments.
Patrons, the time is now 8:45.
In urban environments to reduce motor vehicle speeds and protect other road users such as pedestrians and cyclists. Whereas contra-flow bike lanes have been implemented safely on other streets in the district, including 39th Street Northwest and 41st Street Northwest in Ward 3, as well as over a dozen other U.S. cities, with no evidence that they increase collisions or traffic fatalities. Whereas the west side of the 2600 block and the east side of the 2700 block of Woodley Place, where the bike lanes would be installed, each feature unusually long stretches of uninterrupted curb, with just 3 curb cuts for driveway or alley access on each block, meaning that the number of conflict points where cars would turn across the proposed bike lanes is unusually low. Whereas the views expressed to the Commission regarding DDOT's proposal by residents who do not live on Woodley Place itself have been almost uniformly supportive of the proposed bike lanes. Whereas the proposed bike lanes would facilitate cyclist connections between the on-street signed bike route at 29th Street and Cathedral Avenue Northwest and the bike lanes at Calvert Street and Woodley Place Northwest, which would benefit residents of ANC 3C and other Washingtonians by improving the district's overall bike lane network. And whereas in January, each member of this commission, in his or her oath of office, affirmed that he or she would consider each matter before this commission, quote, from the viewpoint of the best interests of the District of Columbia as a whole, end quote. Therefore be it resolved that ANC 3C supports the installation of the bike lanes on Woodley Place Northwest and urges the expeditious completion of the project. And be it further resolved that the chair and the secretary are authorized to represent the commission on this matter.
Second.
Just real quick, those of you. Just real quick to make sure my fellow commissioners caught it, the draft I circulated to you in writing, only the supports clause, the second to last paragraph, what I read aloud was slightly different than my earlier draft. I removed as described in DDOT Notice 19-34 kind of date and the phrase project is outlined, just so everyone caught that before we vote. I'm happy to make any explanations, but I think we're in a big hurry here.
Thank you. So just to be clear, you deleted the comma phrase as described by DDOT and purchases the completion of the project. Okay, thank you. All right. Is there discussion on the amendment as a substitute? Pardon?
I second.
Bob second.
Second. Is there any discussion? All right. Ben?
So most unfortunately, I have to recuse myself from participating in this matter. My partner is a tutor and he is a client who lives on Woodley Place and has been very active in this debate, and made a point of asking him how I was going to vote. There is something in the conflict of interest regulations that addresses votes that affect the income of members of the household. I asked the head of the Office of Government Ethics whether I could vote tonight on this, and he said no. He said it creates the appearance of impropriety. So most unfortunately, I cannot participate.
All those in favor of the amendment as a substitute for the main motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Nay.
Could you call the roll?
Commissioner Reba,
Nay.
Commissioner Fink,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubois,
Yes.
Commissioner Finley,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst.
Aye.
Commissioner Boucher,
No.
Commissioner Kirsten,
No.
Commissioner McWood.
No.
It's a tie vote, 4-4, so the resolution fails. The next item for our consideration then is the main motion that was introduced by Commissioner Reba. Is there any additional discussion on this resolution before we go to a vote? There being none, Rachel, would you please call the roll call, and that will be more expeditious.
On the main motion. Okay, Commissioner Reba,
Yes.
Commissioner Fink,
No.
Commissioner Dubois,
No.
Commissioner Finley,
No.
Commissioner Hurst,
No.
Commissioner Boucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gersten,
Yes.
Commissioner McWood.
Yes.
The vote was exactly the same, it's 4-4 vote, so the resolution also fails. So ANC 3C will have no comment on the proposal. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone who worked very hard on this. Thank you to DDOT for coming and making the presentation. I'm going to ask you all to leave as quietly and quickly as you can. We have to continue with our agenda. No, we're continuing with the meeting. Sorry, can't talk to you. We're continuing with our business. Please keep moving.